today. Today we are going to talk through how to limit people on what they can put time to. So when they do their time entry, can they put time to every project? Do they see every project? Or do we limit them on what projects they see and what they can actually put time to? So there'll be some specific rights. There'll also be some setup that we do in the client record as well. A couple of housekeeping the notes that I want to do is the webinar is obviously going to be recorded. It'll typically be posted within about a week on that support website where you go to see the webinars. So it'll be recorded. If anyone wants to review it, or if anyone on your team was not able to attend, you can always send them to the support site or to that recording. They can also be downloaded as well. Also, I prefer everyone just use the chat if you do have any questions. I know there's also a Q&A spot. It's easier if you just keep them in one particular section. So if you do have any questions, just go ahead and throw it in the chat. I'll stop periodically to check to see if there's anything in the chat, and then we'll go over those questions as we see them. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. I am going to start within the client or your employee record. So I have Ben Franklin in here. And the reason that I wanted to go in here is a couple of things. For one, obviously, their security group plays a huge role in whether they can put time to something or not. So you have different groups. Yours might be labeled a little bit different than mine, but he's in more of a creative production. So he's kind of like the day-to-day person that would be working on projects. So this is a huge part of whether they can track time. Now, if someone has this administrator box checked, that means that they have access to everything in the system regardless of what security group you put them in. So most important is making sure that you're putting them in the right group. But if they have this box, it doesn't really matter what security group you give them, because this will override. This will give them full access to everything in the system. Typically, you only want a couple of administrators in your group. You can have quite a few if you need to, but most of the time you want at least two, just in case one is out. Then we can rely on the other one to be able to get everything done. So making sure they're in the proper group is definitely step one. The other section that I want to talk through is going to be projects and time. So I'm going to scroll down to services. And the reason why is because I don't want Ben Franklin to be able to put time to just every single service that we have in the system. I want to limit them to what their role actually is. So Ben Franklin is a copywriter above everything else. That's going to be the default, but he can also do art and creative, art design, and copywriting. You don't necessarily have to have a default. Some people ask, do we have to have a default? No, not necessarily, but this would be the only services that Ben Franklin can put time to. And so if he's just going to his timesheet, maybe we didn't assign a task, when he clicks the drop down for what service they did on the task, they would have to choose only from this list of three, because it's art direction, and copywriting. These two are obviously the same because I'm saying this is going to be the default, but they can also put time to this. So how you get these down here, obviously click on the drop down to get the default service here. But then again, if they have all additional services that they do, click on that plus button, and then you check the box. The ones that are already in here won't show in this list again. Obviously, once you choose them, then they're listed here, but you can obviously add as many services as you need to. One question that we get quite often is if someone is assigned to a task and it's different service than what you have listed here, will the system let you put time? Yes, because you've assigned them to that. You've told the system it is okay for them to put time to that particular service just on that one task. So you won't see it for every task, just the ones that you've gone in and assigned it to. So those are your two sections that you need to look through, or that you need to go to whenever you're setting up an employee or reviewing an employee, and having that ability of kind of locking them down. Is that security controls for your security group, and then projects and time, choosing what service they can put time to. Now we're going to go into the security settings, which is basically the rights, because there is something that can override this. And half of my clients do not have that overridden just because, again, they don't want them to see from a full list. They want it to be a little bit easier for that employee to choose what service they actually did. So I'm going to jump into the security settings. This is in your menu. You have that admin manager. Here's system setup. And then security settings is going to be listed here. If you don't have access to this, then obviously you don't have the rights to get to that particular section. Security production, this is where Ben Franklin is. You can always see who's in that group just to make sure that you've highlighted the right group. When you highlight the group, then obviously everything checked is what they have access to. Everything unchecked is what they don't have access to. So I'm going to minimize a few of these different sections. So for one, Ben Franklin, obviously they can get into projects, they can view the tasks and schedule page, just because if they need to see maybe a couple of tasks that are coming up in a schedule, but maybe aren't ready yet, they can get a full view of maybe what's coming up. What else can they do? There's one that we typically recommend that you not give them, actually a couple of them, but access any project. What this means is if I check this box, Ben can go in and see every single project. So when they go into the search, they can see every project, whether they are on it or not. If they don't have this right, then what they're going to be limited to is whatever they're on the team of. So I'm going to pull up a project. There's the team tab here. If Ben is listed on this team of this particular project, then he has access to that project. Otherwise, if he's not listed, and since he doesn't have access to any project, then he's not going to be able to see that project. When he types in 9288 in the search, it will never find that project if he's not on the team of it. Charge any project. This is what allows them to charge a project whether they're assigned to it or not. Again, we don't really recommend this unless it's someone who's more in an admin or account manager role, something like that. This gives them full ability to charge time to any project in the system. Not always recommended, especially for people that are in like a creative or production group. But again, this is what gives them that access to find that project to then put time to it. The other one that I wanted to mention, or a couple others, are going to be in the time and expenses section. So you'll see a bunch that say charge. Charge time to any service. This is what I was talking about, where above these, can Ben Franklin put time to any service or not? Again, if you're trying to lock everything down and only allow them to put time to just certain things, then you don't want to have that charge time to any service checked. Charge time to tasks they're not assigned to, also within the parameters of what can they actually put time to. So for Ben, he has to be assigned to the task in order for him to be able to put time to it. If he's not assigned, then we'll notice that he really won't be able to put time to anything just because he's not, he doesn't have the rights. And again, he's not assigned. So charge time to tasks they're not assigned to just means that they have to be listed in the assigned section in order for him to be able to put time to it. So I'm going to put his name here. That then means that Ben can put time to this particular task on this project. Charge time to tasks that do not have completed predecessors. So this goes to dependencies. If you have projects where each task is dependent on other tasks to be complete before it can start, then can they put time to something where the predecessor is not listed as complete? So you have your predecessor column listed here. So that means that several of these tasks, they are dependent on other tasks being marked complete before those particular tasks can start. So if I add Ben, so Ben is on this concept review / approval section, it has a predecessor of line 3. So what that means is the task above it is the dependency for his task before he can go in and start it. So since his group does not have the right to charge time to tasks that are not complete or the completed predecessor isn't done, then he actually cannot put time to this. It really won't show up as something for him to do. The next one is charge time to completed tasks. So once a task has been marked complete, can they go in and put time to that task? So if you don't have that box checked, then they can't put the time to it. They charge time to completed tasks obviously means that if this task is marked complete, can someone put time to it or not? If they don't have that right, then the task would have to be marked incomplete. So you'd basically remove that 100% done from it in order for someone to be able to put time if they do not have that right. And then I think that's the last one for the timesheet. So it's really these couple of different options. There's obviously a couple of other things that you can look at as far as timesheets. Can they unapprove their own timesheet so that maybe they can edit it? A lot of people go back and forth on that. So most will just leave it unapproved because they're hoping that someone won't just go in, unapprove, and make all these different changes to it. So those are the typical rights that you want to look at if you're trying to kind of limit certain groups from being able to just put time to all kinds of different things. These are the ones that you would want to take a look at. The easiest way to kind of get to them is if you start typing in charge, you would typically see the items that are related to whatever search criteria you use. So charge any project and charge time to any service and not complete and have completed predecessors. So that would be the rights that you would want to go in and take a look at. You might check some of them because they might apply to your employee, or you might have all of them unchecked like I do with Ben. We're fully locking down those rights. So I don't see anything in the chat, but here's a good time to kind of pause. Are there any questions that we have up to this point? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on. So I'm going to jump into Ben's profile in here. Actually, I have another tab open. Hopefully we can find it. And it basically is me signed in as Ben. Now you'll notice that I opened it up in an incognito window. And that's just because you can't have two different profiles on the same browser. And so typically you want to open up a full new browser tab just so that you can make sure that you're not crossing over those rights. So Ben is Ben and then me is me. We want to make sure that we open them up in different tabs. So if you're ever going to log in as another employee, you just want to make sure that you do that in another tab. Again, I just did mine in incognito, so it didn't really remember that we've ever been signed in as anyone else but Ben Franklin on here. So now his Creative Today page is pretty blank. And that's just because I haven't really assigned him to anything that's in an active status. So he doesn't really have access. If I go to the timesheet and click on this, it looks like I can see a few different projects in here. I haven't taken all of them off, but typically I might get some errors if I try and say everything is kind of locked down. So I might be able to see certain projects because I'm on the team of them, but you'll notice everything's grayed out. My default service also comes in. So it knows that Ben's default is copywriting. So it's going to go ahead and put copywriting in there. Otherwise, again, it's narrowed down that list. I can only see those 3 services because on his employee profile, I locked it down to where he can only put time to those 3 different services. So if you have a default, it's going to go ahead and choose that default for you, but obviously they can go in and override that. But because I didn't assign him to any tasks and because his rights don't have the ability to put time to tasks he's not assigned to, he can technically see the tasks, but they're all grayed out. If I click on any of them, it's not going to work. So this is how you can then kind of lock it down. If you have it to where you put charge time to any or to tasks they're not assigned to, then obviously this would be something that they could put time to. But obviously we locked it down for a reason. And so it's going to wait until until we actually have something assigned to Ben. Now I do see a question. It says, I'm an administrator, but cannot go into employees' logins without their password. Is there a secret way? You're correct. You can't just log in as them without their password. There's not really that ability up to this point. That is one of the requests that a few clients have put in. So I don't know if that'll get added in, but as for right now, you do have to have their password. So typically what some people will do is it's usually once they're creating a new employee, they'll go in, they typically know the password just because they have to set it up when you're first creating a client employee record. So that's when you can go into a new tab and then um, actually type in their password, go in and kind of peruse as them. So short answer is no, you cannot without their password. Okay. Um, so we'll go ahead and move on. So again, I locked down the employee's ability to just put time to everything. It's basically going to rely on me making sure that I go in and assign Ben to tasks. So I'm going to jump back into here. I have this project that I created and I specifically wanted to use just for this particular call. So you'll notice I did assign him, but my status, my project status does not allow time entries. It's not in an active status. So that's why we're not seeing it for Ben. I'm going to go ahead and assign him to a couple of different tasks in here. You'll notice again, it brought in that default. So that's why it's kind of handy to have the default, especially if your employee most of the time does one particular service. Putting in that default just kind of saves me a little bit of time if that's what I was going to assign him to. Now, obviously, if I was going to assign him to something a little bit different, then I do have to go ahead and click into it. But it at least puts that default just in case it can save me from one extra click. Half the clients do this, half the clients don't, but allocations. We always recommend that you do give them some sort of guideline on how much time you're giving them to do this particular task. Now, you don't have to. A lot of our clients are unsure or unaware of how much they should give their employee. They don't want them to panic about allocations. So again, if you don't, that's fine. But if you're trying to go with the Workamajig way, which is kind of the standard, less resistance kind of way into the system, then we do recommend putting in an allocation. It never caps them from being able to put anything over the allocation. It's just more of a guideline for you to see, okay, we thought that they would do it in 5 hours, but maybe on this particular task, every time we do this particular project, we're seeing that it's 6.5 hours or 8 hours. Then maybe we're just not allocating enough. Maybe things have changed enough to where the previous allocation that we give is just not enough for them to complete that task. Or maybe we need to give it to a more senior person in order to get it done. But allocation is just another way to be able to see this is what we thought versus this is what actually happened. Okay, so Ben's going to be assigned, we'll just do 3 different tasks in here. Now, obviously, these tasks do have predecessors. So I talked about being able to see predecessors, being able to track time to something where the predecessor is not complete. Ben does not have that right. So even though he's assigned to 3 different tasks in here, he really won't be able to put time to every single one of those just because that predecessor is not listed as complete. Now, one thing that I also like to mention is some people have overhead or admin projects in there. There is something where you can override what the rights are. In here, it's going to be something like allow anyone to charge time. So if you check this box, it basically says that even though probably a lot of the people don't have rights to just track time to everything, there are certain projects where maybe you do want to allow it to be open to everyone. Could be internal projects, could be a particular project where it's an all hands on deck, whatever it is. This would override the security rights that they have. So you do have that option of allowing people to go in and track time to maybe a particular project that maybe they aren't assigned to, or that we just need everyone to be able to kind of work on this project or have visibility to work on it. Now, the other part of that is on the schedule. Obviously, can they track time to tasks they're not assigned to? If there are certain tasks, again, that you do want them to be able to track time to, even if they're not assigned, you can click on the show task details. And then I think it's in the other tab. There's an ability to say allow on all timesheets. So you might have an admin or overhead project where you say allow anyone to charge time on that accounting tab. And then in order for them to be able to put time to any of those tasks, if they don't have the right to put time to tasks that they're not assigned to, then you would check this box of allow on all timesheets for any of those tasks where anyone should be able to put time to. So these could override what you actually have in the security settings if there are projects that are one-offs or again, overhead, internal, admin projects, whatever you want to call them, that can override what you actually have in your security rights for just a few projects if you needed to. So again, it's kind of twofold. One is the ability of having visibility to the project, and then it goes back to the rights of can they track time to any task or basically tasks they're not assigned to? If not, then you would need to check allow on all timesheets. Any questions right now? Okay. So moving on, we're going to jump back to Ben's profile. Actually, I need to put my project in an active status. I'm going to go ahead, move it. Your statuses might be a little bit different, but mine production is the one that basically considers it to be active. I have a few of them, but that's the one that I want to use. I want to say that the whole schedule set up. Obviously, I'd probably want other people to be assigned to everything. I don't know if you guys know how to assign in mass, but obviously there's quite a few different ways to do that. So for one, I can check the box and I can say, go ahead and reassign is the one that I typically like to pull up just because it has a lot of different options within it. Otherwise, if you do something like edit assignments, it'll bring up what you currently have in here and then you can put names next to each line. Add assignments is saying keep what's in there, but I want to add services or people that are not currently on that particular task. So I always say the reassign one is probably best just because it's the easiest one to utilize. There's things like replace a person with a different person. So if I assign someone, they're going to be out or unable to do those tasks, then you can replace them. It'll look for, so if I click on the box, it'll say, who do you want to replace? This is the only person on the schedule. So who do I replace? And then who do I replace them with? And so obviously this would be the whole drop down. The other options, oh, and the other thing that comes up is do I remove them from the project, which means the team of the project. Why you would do this is if I remove Ben from every single one of his assignments, does he still need visibility to this project or not? And the reason you might remove them is maybe I don't want them working on it. Maybe I don't want them to have visibility to it, whatever that is. Then you would remove them from the team of the project. And then again, those rights go back to can they access that particular project? And if they have to be on the team of it and we remove them, then obviously Ben would not have visibility to this particular project. The other, one of the other options is assign a person to a service. So if I said, okay, anything that is art and creative, go ahead and assign Ben, right? Because that's one of his services that he provides. I could go ahead and do that, hit reassign, and then it would go in and put Ben on each of those because it basically said, okay, well, you checked this right and you said art and creative. So it found everything that's art and creative. And then it went ahead and put Ben on there. Now, I haven't actually done it because I'm looking through the different options, but it's basically showing you if you did this option, this is what would happen. And here's his allocations. Remove this person from their assignments is for if you maybe fired Ben, he's no longer going to work on this, but you're unsure of who is going to be replacing him, then you can at least remove the person and then keep the service if the service is going to stay the same. Now you'll see something that says use this service if one isn't specified. That basically meant that if I put Ben's name on one of these tasks, but I didn't put a service, when I remove him, what service do we replace him with, basically? So again, remove this person from their assignments just gives you the ability of taking Ben's name off of tasks. It'll leave it to whatever service is currently listed, or if there isn't a service listed, it replaces it with whatever one you choose here. Again, you have that remove from project. They'll replace one service with another. So this is handy if you've edited or gone in and adjusted your services. So maybe we no longer call it art and creative. Maybe we deactivated that service and we need to replace it with a different one. You can always then say, replace this service with this new service. And then the last one is just to remove the assignments altogether. Do I remove Ben from everything that is art, design, and creative design, or you want to change what you're removing him from? So those are the options. That's why I'm saying reassign. It kind of sounds like you're just doing reassigning maybe from one to another, but obviously you have a bunch of different options in here. Again, the one that I like the most is assign a person to a service so that I can quickly say, go ahead and find anything that's art and creative or account management or whatever it is, and then put this person on it. Any questions on that right now? Okay. So then the next option to assign people, besides doing either clicking into here and assigning, using that checkbox to then go in and assign, that assignment looks like this, where it basically just brings it all up in a grid, and then you kind of one by one go in. Here's the service option. Here's the assigned person. You would go ahead and just kind of do that down the line. Obviously, this takes a little bit more work. So that's why I don't show that one first, is just because there's obviously an easier way for me to assign and to everything that's copywriting. Right, so you have this option. Again, if you do this, that's adding in a new assignment. It's not editing what's currently there. So you just want to make sure that you're kind of paying attention to what the options are. And then obviously you have a send notification for all edits if needed. So those are the two that you have within, or well, really three that you have within the schedule is clicking here, or clicking here. The other option, and less common or less known, would be within the team tab. So if I go to the team tab, I have a couple of people listed here. For one, they do have to have what service they provide. So Ben doesn't have one, but if I said he's mostly going to be the art direction, that'll be separate from what's already in there. And then I have me, that's account management, and Jerry, that's art and creative, and Stanley, that does copywriting. Obviously, you can change those. So if I said he's not going to do this, I'm going to have him do, creative direction. You can allow them to do multiples, or you can remove the other one that was in there. This basically goes in and allows me to auto assign. So what that means is it'll look here and see what service or services does each person do. And then it'll look to the schedule and try and match those up. So it'll tell me what's kind of in the project. It has art and creative and art direction. Those are the couple of different services that are in the project. Actually, all of these are in there, but this is what's within their wheelhouse. So on their employee record, what they have listed. So I need to make sure that each one of those is at least listed with what service you want them to do. So I have copywriting for Stanley, creative direction for Jerry, account management for Brittany, and then art direction for Ben. If I go in, it'll basically say that it's going to go ahead and push those services based off of, or the team based off of what tasks need each of those different services. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. One thing that can change it is if I have an estimate in there. I don't, so that's why I kind of breezed over that estimate part. But when we go back to the schedule, you'll notice I have a bunch of different initials next to each of those. So it tried its best. So Stanley got assigned, Brittany got assigned, Ben was already assigned. It tried its best to go ahead and match up what's needed. So obviously I didn't put anyone on research or general admin, but it is kind of a fast way to do it. You can do it as many times as you want to. It's never going to edit anything that already has an assignment. So Ben was already assigned to this art and creative. So even though in the team tab we just put art creative or something like that. It didn't override, it didn't take him away from what was already existing. It's just looking for anything currently unassigned that has the service and then goes ahead and tries to match up what service needs what person. So basically goes in and pushes the people out based off of what their role or what service you put in there. Okay, so that's kind of your fourth option. The fifth option, which we won't really go too much into, is obviously your resourcing screens. So you have staff schedule, you have traffic calendar, you have assignment management. All three of those give you the ability of going in and assigning as well. I won't go too deep into those just because they're not really what we're going over today. But obviously, you can find what's unassigned. So I have a bunch of services that are currently unassigned, and I can go in and then actually assign from here. So reassign to, whoever, save, and then that'll go in and assign. Obviously, that is another way of going in and doing it. The traffic calendar will have something similar. So there's so many different ways to assign. Kind of whatever works better for you is what we recommend. But the idea is that you do go in and actually assign people to tasks, and then giving them that ability or the rights that only give them access to what they should see rather than huge long lists of services, of tasks that maybe they don't need to put time to or can't put time to. When you're assigning them, then obviously the best thing for the employee to do is to then work from their today page, right? They need to make sure that they are going into their today page in order to actually track the time. So I am making sure that this, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and remove this predecessor. And typically their Creative Today page will update automatically, but I'm going to go ahead and make sure that it does. Task 3. I'm going to remove some predecessors, or I guess I could mark tasks complete in order for them to be able to see it. So go in, those 2 tasks are now listed as complete. So when we go to that Creative Today page, we now see one of those different tasks that's showing up on there. So even though he's assigned to several different tasks, there's a couple of reasons why we only see the one. For one, your display options can have this completed predecessors only, which just means, do I see all tasks or do I just see the ones that are ready to work? So you have this box checked for Ben, which just means that he can only see what's ready to work. If I uncheck this, then obviously a couple of other tasks came in because he's assigned to those different tasks. Now they're not ready to work, but having visibility might be helpful so you can kind of manage the rest of his week. So based off of what we did, we assigned him to that concept review and approval. He's art and creative. He's got 2 days to do it. So it's not due today, but he probably wants to work on it. He was given 10 hours. So we have 10 hours remaining out of the 10 hours allocated. So that's how you read these cards. And then obviously, once they've put time to it, or once they've worked on it, they want to go ahead and put their time. So all they have to do is click on the clock icon. And there's really 2 different options for this. One is to start a timer and allow the system to kind of keep track. So if they haven't worked on it, they're about to start, they can go ahead and start the timer, let it tick, they go in and work on the task. And then once they're done, obviously they can click on the done box and it will keep track of what time they actually put. If they're going to break and coming back to it, then they go ahead and pause, and then there'd be a play button once they're ready to re-begin that particular task. But this will continue to tick. It never stops, even if we close out of Workamajig, my computer crashes, my laptop falls in the ocean, whatever it is, this will always continue to tick just because it's on the server level, which just means that you physically have to stop this or pause it in order for it to continue to then be done. And technically, you can have multiple timers open at the same time. Some people ask us that. I'm not sure how someone would be able to work on two different tasks simultaneously, but maybe they can. And so in that case, if you ask, can they start a timer on something else? Yes, you could say start a timer. So then you have two different timers ticking for different tasks and services, and even at different time levels, that's completely fine. And then once they're done, they go ahead and stop it. Are you sure you want to stop the timer? Yes. It fills in all of the details for them. So that's why we're saying Creative Today page is definitely the best place for them to go. Number one, they'll see all the tasks they are assigned to or whatever's ready to work. Number two, it makes it really easy for them to go in and track time. Now, if they're done, they just check the box. If they're not done, they worked on it a little bit today, and then they're going to work on it tomorrow, then they just click this save box. And then what happens is it says, okay, well, now you have this 9.99 or 98 hours left on this, but you've gone in and kind of started it. Some people choose to use the percentages. So maybe they worked on it, got about halfway done. They want to go ahead and indicate that they're halfway done. That's fine. It doesn't really do anything as far as saying, okay, well, if they're halfway done and they've only done, let's say, an hour, it won't change the allocation because you never know, or we never know. Yeah, it might be 50% done, but how much longer is it going to be for me to complete the rest of the 50%? So a lot of people don't really mess with the in-betweens. It's just once they're done with the project, they'll go in. This is the other option of just putting in the time rather than having the system track it. You can just say you did 2 hours. Again, you have that, am I done with this task or not? If I'm not done, I'm not checking that box. So I go in, it'll continue to update. The project also updates as well. So when we go back and look at the project, you would be able to see what the actual hours are on this. I got to figure out which one it was, or maybe I refresh. But once we've worked on it, you can see they've done 2.02 hours. They put that they're 50% done on this. So maybe it's a good way to see, okay, they think they're about 50% done. Maybe they're going to come in under their allocation. Again, that might be an indicator, it might not be, but you also get to see the actual hours listed on here. You can go in and check those. So right as they're doing those time entries, it is going to go ahead and update for you so that if you're an account manager or project manager, whatever kind of oversees the project, then you are able to kind of see that right off the bat. It's not like it waits a day and then says, okay, well, here's all the time. It is showing you live what has gone on at this particular point. One question that we have in there is, can we have those percentages on the Today Creatives page hidden? If they put 100% done on the creatives, will it automatically mark that task as done, or do they still need to check the box? So first answer, nope, you can't hide it. These are just set as they are. There's no option to change or edit any part of this. Number two is if I do put 100% done, that is going to mark my portion of the task done. So it is the same as going in and, whoops, let me do that, and clicking the box to say I am done with this task. It's the same thing. The reason that we have this here is some people forget to check the box. So they might put in their, another 2 hours and they forgot to check the box. Well, they obviously don't want to have to put another time entry in order to then mark it done. So this would be that option. I'm going to go ahead and mark this one done. It'll say, are you sure you want to do that? Yes. And then what it did is it actually took that task card away because we obviously only want them to see what they should be working on or what's ready for them to work. So since they indicated they're done with their part of that task, then that task card goes away the moment we do put in that it is 100% done. So yes, that 100% here and also that ability, let me go ahead and stop this, of doing the I am done with this task, those are both the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and stop my timer. I'm going to stop my other timer. And you'll notice that if I just kind of close out and don't save it, obviously it won't track that time. So one thing to just be cautious of is making sure they go in and save it and actually indicate what hours they actually did. If you let a timer run for too long, right, then what happens is obviously it shows you what time you actually did. Actually, I'm going to bring that back. Whoops, let me go back into here and I'm going to unmark Ben as complete. So this is one of those other items where can they track time to a completed tasks? If you do want them, then obviously they can have that, right? If they should track time to this, but they mark their task 100% done, then all you have to do is remove the percent in there. So I go in, I mark that it's no longer done. So when we go back to Ben, then that task shows back up and I can go in and adjust it as needed. I was mentioning if I let my timers run for too long, and maybe it shows some crazy amount of hours because I left it overnight or whatever, this field is not locked down. So if this said, like 100 hours or something crazy, obviously you can just go ahead and override it based off of what hours they actually did. So there's no harm in them starting the timers and actually kind of working on those. And then if they forget, then obviously they're not stuck with having 100 hours or whatever crazy number shows up in there. It just allows you to go in and edit that field. Good. Any questions right now? Okay. So then really wrapping it up a bit is obviously I'm going to jump back to that timesheet because we did a lot of our time from within this section. Then obviously it's filling out my timesheet for me. So that's really why we want to work from Creative Today page above anything else, is just because it's going to show you what you have to work. Now, obviously you might have multiple projects and multiple different tasks. So you might say, well, they're having to scroll. You can always use the search criteria. This will search for project name, project number, the service, the task name. So it does encompass a few different things so that if they're just unsure of where it is or they just want to jump to it quickly, they can go in and use that search. So I see one of mine is photography. So if I go in and start typing in photography, it's going to narrow down as I use that search. The other thing that some people ask about is these couple of different icons. So this one's the card view. It shows in cards. Some people work better with grids. And so this would be the grid view. This is showing the same exact information as the card view, just in a different manner. Okay, so you still have all the same information. You still have all that same detail. It's just when I do time entry, the time entry is just going to be a tiny bit different where it just shows in here rather than opening up that side panel, but it's doing the same thing. I can put in my time, I can mark it done and hit save. There's even the ability of doing the timer within here. So again, no difference between the two, just visually, that's what's going to be different. This one is going to be very different than the other two. It does not follow any of the rules, most of the rules of your display options. It coincides with your, what is it called? Assignment management tool. And so that's one of the resource tools that you have in there. It only coincides with what you have listed in Resource Manager and Assignment Management. We'll see that it basically is going to show me the same exact thing on, oh, actually, I wanted to look at Ben. So I'm going to look at Ben. But this is ultimately what that coincides, that particular view coincides with, is you'll notice it just has a couple of different buckets in here and then the one task. This is basically saying that between this week, this is the only task that he has. It'll show you unassigned work and you can go in and assign it, but ultimately the view that we were looking at within here, yeah, this has been, it's going to coincide with that one. So it won't follow the rules. It won't show the same exact detail of these two. This one's a lot different. If you don't even see this, that means that it's not enabled. Typically, you don't enable this unless you're actually using that assignment review section. Okay, so a couple of different questions. Can an hour still be edited after the timer is closed and saved? So basically is the time entry at that point. So if I go into my time, uh, the ones that you see with an actual time, start time and end time, that means that I used a timer for those. If if my timesheet is not approved, or I have the ability of editing a timesheet after it's approved, then I can just go in and put an hour. So yes, you can still override, especially if it's that day. Now, once we get to the next day and maybe my timesheet's approved and or maybe the time has been billed or marked as billed, there's obviously a couple of different things that will lock it down. So usually we recommend them at the end of the day going in, reviewing, making sure that everything looks right. And then they go in and do that open to then submit their timesheet to the approver. Next one was going back to security settings. Is it possible to lock an employee ability to change the dates of their assigned tasks? So that is going back to whether, so yeah, let's jump to the rights. Ben Franklin only had the ability of viewing the schedule. I did not give him the ability of editing the schedule because those are two different things. So I said view, task, and schedule page, but he doesn't have the ability of editing. Okay, so this is kind of the big part of it is, yeah, they should be able to view because again, maybe they just want to see where all their tasks fall on a schedule and maybe they need to see who else they're working with because maybe one task has multiple assignments on it. So yes, you can and probably should give them the ability, though you definitely don't have to. But this gives them visibility to the schedule page. But if he wants to go in and edit it, he would have to have this right, which I did not give him. So what it looks like to him when he goes to that 9288 project, he has a schedule page, but that's really it. I can't really go in and edit everything within here. There's not really, see, I don't even have like edit assignments or anything like that. So really, it's just a view only for him. I can click into days. I can't edit it. I can click into the dates. There's just no ability for me to see this or really do anything with it. So you can lock it down. It's just basically not having them have that right for edit task information. The other question in here is there an option to take away the weekly timesheet and only use the tiles? Do any agencies do that? No, just because, again, most of my agencies, they have PTO projects or again, admin or overhead. And so usually those aren't going to be task cards. Occasionally, some of my clients do actually assign within those PTO or overhead projects, but most of the time they don't. And really, the Creative Today page is then to fill out your timesheet. Once you've kind of done the timesheet or you've used the cards to fill out your timesheet, again, if I do need to take away or maybe edit something that I did, then I would have to go into the timesheet in order to do that because I can't really do it from that Creative Today page. So we don't really recommend it. There isn't an option to kind of take away the timesheet, especially that week view, because a lot of times someone's working on something over the whole week. And again, if it's that PTO project, when they go to track the time. So if I'm in here, I'm going to jump to the timesheet. You're talking about this week view. It's really handy if this was a PTO project. Let's say that this one's a PTO project. If I'm working on it throughout the week, I can just do 1 hour here, 1 hour here, and then, continue to kind of go down the week and say that I worked on it a couple of hours throughout the week. And so it's obviously the fast way to do it if I was not assigned to that actual task. Okay. Any other questions right now? Okay. So that's really it. Obviously, we started with making sure the employee record itself is set. So that was going to the employee record and indicating number one, what group should they fall within? And then number two, going in and indicating what services. Now, obviously, you don't have to do this whole side of it. Some of my clients do just leave it open to allowing them to track time to every service. That's fine if that's what you need. But if you're trying to really lock it down, those two within the employee record are going to be a good idea. And then the next section was going to be the employee rights. So menu admin, that system setup section, security settings, minimize the first two, and then leave a project admin and the time and expenses section because those are really what kind of go to what rights they have and what they can do as far as time entry and visibility to projects. The ones that we talked about within project admin were, can they view the schedule page? Can they access any project? And most of the time you don't want that, but some people do. So if you want them to have visibility, at least you can check that box. And then there's things like charge any project, charge time to services, any service, charge time to tasks are not assigned to not completed predecessors, completed tasks. So those are kind of the ones that we mention or that really affect time entry. And then after that, it's just what did you set up? So what projects are they on? What services are they assigned to? And then what tasks they're actually on. So those are the ways to kind of narrow it down. If you need additional information on this, feel free to reach out to your account manager. They'd be happy to set up another call. But hopefully this gave you a really good overview of how the rights kind of work in conjunction with the employee record and how we can have it to where employees just can't track time to anything and everything and kind of lock them down a bit. I see that there is one more question. If someone adds time to the wrong day, can they delete or does that fall to the admin? So that goes back to its next day. Did your time sheet get approved? If so, then do I have the ability of unapproving my own timesheet? If not, then someone who does have the ability of unapproving the timesheet would need to go in and do it so that you can then make the edits to what you need to. But if you're working from Creative Today page, it's always defaulting to what is today, right? So you'll notice it says February. Now, if I actually backtrack and say, okay, I'm going to go to the 12th and maybe I go in and put a time entry, it will read the 12th instead. So just know that that's an option. I don't really mention that to creatives because obviously I'm hoping that they do their time entry the same day and that they're making sure that they're putting in their time daily so that my projects are accurate, so that my budget versus actuals are more accurate. Because if they're waiting till the end of the week, then I might show my budget looks great Monday through Thursday, and then all of a sudden they finally put in their time. Maybe they went over all their allocations, and boom, we're like way over. So try and get your people to do time at the, at least at the end of the day, definitely not at the end of the week because you're going to miss out on a lot and your projects are not really going to reflect the most accurate information. Any other questions? Okay, so I will go ahead and end it now. But again, you can reach out to your account manager, just support at workamajig.com. If you want to reach out to their scheduler, that's just going to be training at workamajig.com. If you accidentally send a question to training, that's fine. She just forwards it over. Same thing if you send a schedule request to support, your support person will just send it over to your scheduler. So just try and remember one of those, support at workamajig.com or training at workamajig.com. That'll get you to where you need to go. And then again, you can set up any additional calls or anything else follow up for this with your account manager. We'll post the recording in about a week or less usually on that support site. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, then you go to support.workamajig.com. There's a webinars link. And then this is where we're at. We're kind of in the upcoming, but if you wanted to see any of the different webinars that we've done, you can kind of go into accounting. And then these are all previously recorded webinars. You can just click into them, but the one that we did today will be posted within here as well. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and thanks for joining.